Earlier today, we received information that an Iranian frigate, the Denna, was sunk in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Sri Lanka. And, surprisingly, man, it was sunk apparently by a torpedo. In other words, we're talking about a possible submarine attack. And although this might seem like something common, since World War II, this is extremely. So I'm going to clarify this situation for you today. How is it that in the years after World War II up to the present, so few submarines have actually sunk enemy targets? So, as we can see here from this map, since World War II, we haven't seen a scenario as chaotic as this one, right? This is a map of the Pacific. I chose a map of the Pacific instead of a map of the Atlantic because we know that the German submarine campaign in World War II was really extensive, right? It was devastating. But in the Pacific, American submarines carried out a relentless sweep, an uninterrupted sweep, from 1942 to 1945. Against Japanese shipping, there were countless, really countless ships that were sunk by American submarines. But this reality ended in 1945, and in the following 2 decades, we didn't see a single submarine sinking an enemy ship. That started to change in 1971. This ship you're seeing here is an Indian frigate called Indian Naval Ship Kukri. Okay? Kukri comes from the name of the knife, right? That knife from the Gurkhas, right? The one that's curved forward, Kukri. So this frigate here, it's a frigate built in England, Blackwood class, which was sunk on December 9, 1971. In the last Indo-Pakistani War, right? By the Pakistani submarine Pakistan Navy ship Hangor, a French-built submarine of the same class. Daphne, which we actually saw there at the port of Lorient. On our expeditions to Normandy, we always see a Daphne right next to the K3, right? From the German submarine base in Lorient. It's an amazing sight that you can experience with us on our expeditions to Normandy. Okay? But then this submarine Hangor, it sank the Kukri on the night of December 9, 1971. And this ship was sunk off the coast of Diu there in India, and it was sunk during an anti-submarine patrol, right? What irony. An anti-submarine patrol was actually started, right? Launched to try to sink the Hangor. But it was detected in a way to patrol the coast of Diu there, and five enemy anti-submarine frigates, right? Indian ones, were sent to try to sink it, and in the end, the Hangor. On the night of December 9, 1971, it launched a torpedo. According to the submarine's captain, he launched a single torpedo that hit the boilers here on the Kukri, right? And made the ship sink in just 2 minutes. Other Indian reports say that it was 3 torpedoes that hit the Kukri, causing the ship to sink so quickly, right? But, according to the Pakistani commander, he fired only 1 torpedo and the ship sank quickly. It claimed the lives of 18 officers and 176 Indian sailors, right? Despite being attacked with depth charges, he managed to escape the area and reach his port back in Pakistan safely. Okay, so is that it? It was the very first sinking of a ship by a submarine since World War II. The second was this one, which happened during the Falklands War. And this sinking here was carried out by a nuclear submarine. The only nuclear submarine to this day to sink an enemy ship. Okay, so what ship is this that you're seeing here? This is the Ara Belgrano, right? Ara, General Belgrano. It was a light cruiser of the Argentine Navy, which had been serving in the Argentine Navy since the early 1950s. Because before that, this ship here, which was a Brooklyn-class light cruiser from the United States, served in the United States Navy as the United States S. Phoenix. This ship here was even anchored at Pearl Harbor on the morning of December 7, 1941, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. It was not hit by any kind of bomb or enemy aircraft. Making a firing pass, it went completely unharmed during the Japanese attack. It fought during the rest of World War II in the Pacific and was sold to the Argentinians in the early 1950s, right? So, on May 2, 1982, Belgrano was sailing as part of the Southern Argentine pincer, right? Which was supposed to then approach the British Naval Task Force, which was anchored east of the Malvinas-Shire Falklands archipelago. And on that route, leaving from its base in southern Argentina, passing along the coast of Tierra del Fuego near Ushuaia. The Belgrano was observed for several hours by the submarine Her Majesty's Ship Conqueror, a Churchill-class attack submarine, the third Churchill-class nuclear-powered submarine. Okay, so on May 2nd, Margaret Thatcher, over in England, gave the order for the Conqueror to torpedo and sink the General Belgrano. So that's what happened, right? The Conqueror fired torpedoes at the Belgrano. The Belgrano started sinking very quickly, resulting in the deaths of 323 men, including officers and sailors, right? So that became a big publicity piece for Thatcher's government, right? It was on the cover of the main magazines with that headline, "Gotcha," right? Like, I got you? It really shaped the public perception of the Falklands War, and even today it's a very popular headline. And this ended up resulting in an Argentine response 2 days later with the use of Argentine Exocet missiles against the British missile destroyer, Her Majesty's Ship Sheffield. That's the missile launching destroyer, Her Majesty's Ship Sheffield. So, Sheffield sank after 5 days, I believe, while being towed out of the combat area. But the damage was caused just 48 hours after the sinking of the Belgrano. So I wanted you all to pay close attention to this case here. Why? Because the sinking of the Iranian frigate could be the second case of a nuclear submarine sinking an enemy warship. It's been like that all along. Because if it's confirmed that the attacker, Aldina, is an American submarine, it's a nuclear submarine. Because the Americans only use nuclear-powered submarines, okay? The third one. The third ship to be sunk by a submarine since World War II is the South Korean corvette Republic of Korea ship, right? Republic of Korea ship Cheonan from the Pohang class on March 26, 2010. The sinking of this ship is still kind of unclear, kind of mysterious to this day. Why? Because North Korea does not take responsibility for sinking the ship, and some investigators cast doubt on the conclusion of the official investigation. However, what we do know is that the Cheonan was sunk by a North Korean Yono-class mini-submarine. Okay. And it was sailing there on the South Korean coast, on the border with North Korea, off an island that is close to the North Korean coast, but it's under South Korean control, you know? So the island was close to North Korea, but the island belongs to South Korea, right? That's in the Yellow Sea, which means on the west coast of South Korea. And then suddenly, on March 26th, back in 2010, the ship split in half after an explosion. And then that ship ended up sinking under 45 meters of water. It stayed there for a few days until it was recovered and taken for forensic analysis in South Korea. And there basically they found a few pieces, right, that indicated the presence of a North Korean torpedo. That's where I tell you there's a mystery, because some investigators say the evidence isn't conclusive to show it was a North Korean torpedo. And North Korea doesn't take responsibility for the sinking, right? There are these two complications, but officially, it was a Yono-class mini-submarine, okay? The sinking of the Cheonan resulted in 46 deaths, including officers and sailors, right? But this ship was recovered, like I told you, and today it's kind of a memorial, right? Or a museum. There in South Korea, we had it in 2024. Man, the sinking, right? An attack on this submarine here, which is a Russian submarine from the Kilo class called Rostov-on-Don. Rostov-on-Don, that is Rostov-on-Don. This submarine here, I'm just mentioning it because I don't consider it a submarine sinking caused by another submarine, right? The Ukrainians attacked it in 2023. And later in 2024, with an underwater drone, that is, it was a suicide underwater drone. It wasn't a torpedo launch. That's why I don't consider that this submarine here was sunk by an enemy submarine. And also, there's no proof that this submarine was actually sunk. It was attacked. Some sources say it was sunk. Other sources say it wasn't. That it's still there, anchored in Sevastopol to this day, okay? So I'm just mentioning that the submarine Rostov-on-Don was attacked by a drone, an underwater drone, and that some lists count this as a submarine sinking. I don't consider it that way. Then we get here, look, to the Denna, right? To the Iris Denna, which is a Muj-class frigate from Iran that was sunk this morning, March 4th, 2026. On the southern coast of Sri Lanka, there in the Indian Ocean, all reports so far point to a torpedo as the cause of the sinking of the Denna, a ship that has even been here in Brazil before. In 2023, it visited the port of Rio de Janeiro. It was anchored there for a few days, along with the Makran, the Iranian Navy's helicopter carrier, which was also sunk by American missiles, right? On March 1st. And so far, we have a list of 101 missing people. These numbers will probably be clarified later, but for now, 101 missing people. After the sinking of the Denna, the Iranian frigate Denna, it is the 17th Iranian Navy ship that the Americans have recorded as sunk. But so far, there is no proof of the perpetrator, of the identity of the person responsible for this action. And, as I said, if it is proven that it was a submarine, we have only the fourth occasion since World War II in which a submarine sinks an enemy ship, an adversary ship. In the case of Korea, we can say adversary since World War II, and if it is proven that it is an American submarine, then it's the second occasion ever since the Falklands War that a nuclear submarine sinks an adversary ship. Right, so that's one. Still, this incident here is still unresolved, and we have to keep an eye on it to see how far it goes. And since you're here and you like military history, I'll give you a tip to read my book here, The Atom as a Weapon, which will tell you the whole story of the creation and use of atomic bombs in World War II. In this book, you'll find a very didactic story, so you can understand how the research, political decisions, and atomic bombings happened in 1945. Available at the WeClap store via the description link or on-screen QR code, but if you want your copy autographed by me with a dedication for you, just send an email to Saladaguerra Eggmail with your Zone Improvement Plan code so I can calculate the shipping.